I'm Eric Carabell. In the latest fantasy-focused baseball podcast, Tristan Cockroft and I discuss what was learned from the baseball playoffs for fantasy purposes, prospects on display at Arizona Fall League who look great, plus many, many hash browns to answer.
Pardon the interruption, but I'm Mike Wilbon. Tony, there was a shocking result in America last night.
I'm Tony Kornheiser. I know. The Hawks beat the Cavs in Cleveland.
I know. And yesterday I said there was no chance.
Right.
No
Unbelievable.
chance. Did you stay up last night? How late were you up? Yeah, all honesty.
You know what? There were no games I could watch.
Oh, okay.
I hit it pretty early. I went to bed pretty early. So, did I miss something?
Yeah, a little bit.
Is it possible I missed something?
Just a little bit.
Really? Welcome to PTI, boys and girls. In today's episode, the Washington Huskies move into the playoffs. The Cavs finally lose, and Bill Belichick talks Trump. But we begin with Pistons coach and President Stan Van Gundy and his 6-minute rant about the election of Donald Trump. Van Gundy said he noticed his team was unusually quiet during its bus ride this morning and thought it was down because of the team's recent 32-point loss to the Clippers. But backup center Aaron Baines said the team was thinking about the election result. Van Gundy unloaded on Trump to reporters, calling the president-elect, quote, openly and brazenly racist and misogynistic, unquote, and that voters have thrown a good part of the United States population under the bus. Mike, your thoughts?
Well, a lot of them mirror Coach Van Gundy's thoughts. And if he was surprised at his team's reaction, I would not be. Black and brown people awoke this morning feeling anger and despair overwhelmingly that our country elected a man who was openly antagonistic to us. And with that in mind, the NBA is made up overwhelmingly, no surprise, we know this, we follow it, of black and brown people who I'm sure felt the same sort of despair on that bus ride that a lot of us felt in our homes when we woke up this morning. And Van Gundy, kudos to Van Gundy for not being afraid, for giving voice to this, even though there will be backlash directed at him. I think, though, that in the context we're talking in this circle, the NBA and sports, there's going to be a lot more expression, Tony, because that league particularly, as opposed to the Major League Baseball and NFL, has players who are unafraid and coaches who are unafraid to say what's on their minds.
I think this is the shock period. I think this is the raw period in the immediate aftermath of an election like this that nobody predicted. Nobody. Everybody we watched for the last 3 months going into yesterday, everybody got it wrong. And people woke up this morning and went, what? Really? In Stan Van Gundy's case, I guess I find this interesting because previously in many of his open statements, he'd been a loose cannon. Not this time, I don't think. And I'm not going to say that I don't believe every word, that he believes every word, because I think he does. But he also needs to coach his team. He takes the temperature of his team. He feels this. If he can't relate to this, if coaches can't relate to their teams on every level, you know, that's a troublesome circumstance. I mean, I've spent this morning on a podcast with our good friend Leon Harris from Akron, Ohio, who is every bit as upset as Stan Van Gundy and probably every bit as upset as you are. And one of the things that I found myself saying without trying to take sides was there's an electoral process here that goes on. And this reflects, at least in one day, the will of the people at this point. The process doesn't guarantee we get the result we want. It guarantees that the country goes on. And the new president takes office when? January 20th?
January 20th.
So he's going to say a lot of things between here and there.
Yeah, and you know what? There were a lot of things said the last 2 years that are going to overwhelm whatever is said between now and January 20th for some of us.
Yeah, no,
for some of us.
You know, and you try to understand both sides of this and make sense of it as best you can. But I suspect that you're right that the reaction among professional athletes who are overwhelmingly black in the major pro sports, certainly in basketball and in football, on top of the national anthem protest, this is going to get to be a greater thing.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
A double whammy, and these things are related. Yeah. They are.
We move now to another layer of intrigue in the ongoing Tony Romo psychodrama. Romo has been cleared by the doctors to play, but he only took snaps with the scout team today. Insiders believe this means Romo will be inactive on Sunday in Pittsburgh. Wilbon, how should the Cowboys handle Tony Romo?
Just like they're handling him right now. Let the coaches deal with this. You know, and I know I'm talking about Jerry Jones here, so that's unlikely. But scout team, fine. Let him work his way to the point that he can beat Tony Romo. He apparently thinks he feels fine and is ready for NFL contact right now. The doctors will help determine that, as they should. But, Tony, replacing Dak Prescott would be insane at this point. And even having Tony Romo sort of warming up in the bullpen to make him, I don't know, self-conscious would be unconscionable when you're as good as the Cowboys are now with that young man at quarterback.
I think the Cowboys should be thrilled. if Tony Romo's healthy, they have a Pro Bowl quarterback. They don't grow on trees.
That's right.
I think that means that if anything happens to Dak Prescott, they got the best backup quarterback
in the league
in
by
all
far.
of football. I think he should go to Pittsburgh, and I think he should be the emergency quarterback.
I'd be a little
no,
for
the
that.
emergency. The third guy.
I know, but he's only working with the scout team now.
I think at this point, Dak Prescott starts. They're 7-1. They got room to play.
Right.
Mark Sanchez, I guess, is the backup, and you go to him. I would not put Tony Romo actively on the sideline until we knew that he was in optimum physical shape. And then I wouldn't start him, but I'd be happy.
And I'd have him up to number 2 fairly soon if I could do that.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, this can be a really healthy situation if the Cowboys handle it properly. I believe the coaching staff will. Because we can talk about coaches being in tune with their players. The coaches are right there on the ground, as they like to say last night. They're right there with those players 24/7.
The reason this is a story is because of Jerry Jones.
Yes.
Everybody understands it's Jerry Jones. So what we have seen in the last week or two is this. The Jerry Jones started out here, and he has moved to here.
Michael Jackson.
Okay, that's where he is right now.
Yeah.
So then you can all exhale and wait.
As long as you keep Jerry from getting involved. You don't want
Well, Mike, he's the owner and the GM.
I know, but we know and like Jerry.
Yes.
Do you want him getting involved? Do you like Jason Garrett on this one? I know
I like them to stay with what they got so far. I like that.
The second edition of the college football playoff rankings was announced last night, and it went pretty much as I predicted, Tony. Alabama, Clemson, Michigan, Washington.
Tough call.
One loss, Ohio State was a close 5th. One loss, Louisville, 6th. Tone, there's a long way to go in this season. Do you see the top 4 as winding up the final top 4?
Yes, if they win out, yes, I do. I think this is the best situation. I only see a limited amount of things that could happen. The first one is that Auburn could beat Alabama, which will be tough because it's at Alabama.
In the Iron Bowl.
That's tough. And if that happens, then I think there may be 2 SEC teams in the Final Four because it's tough to get rid of Alabama. I think the winner of Ohio State and
not
Michigan.
getting rid of Alabama.
Okay, so then there's 2 teams. I see the winner of Ohio State and Michigan as definitely going.
Suppose Michigan loses a close game in Columbus.
I think Ohio State. Michigan, there could be 2, but Alabama's got to be one. Got to be one of the 4. Clemson, I think, wins out, and Washington has to worry about Washington State.
Yeah.
If they lose to Washington State, then I think that Louisville. Because Lamar Jackson goes big TV ratings.
I know you want to see him.
Big TV ratings.
Yeah, but do you think that Louisville's actually in the group of Michigan, Ohio State, and Alabama
Can
and
I
Auburn?
suggest
Do you really?
This is a television show.
I know, but I'm just asking. So it is a television show.
Yeah.
Yeah, but Tony, college football. Look, first of all, they're not kicking out. There'd have to be something so extreme. I mean,
I'm saying
Auburn
if Washington
would have to beat Alabama's brains out.
I don't think Louisville goes unless Washington is out. They lose to Washington State. You know what's interesting about this? Aside from Louisville and Ohio State, all the other teams you can mention just about have 2 losses already.
Yeah.
And that may be disqualifying. Like Oklahoma has 2, A&M has 2, Washington State has 2.
Auburn can't get a second one.
Auburn has 2.
That's why they got 2 already.
Wisconsin has 2.
We got Auburn.
They got 2.
I mean, but if they beat Alabama and win the SEC, they're going to be in.
And Alabama has to go too, don't you think?
Well, I mean, if Alabama doesn't, if you don't get to your conference championship games,
you're booting out Alabama.
Sure.
You just agreed with me that Alabama's going.
Wait. They're going. That's not my vote. If I voted, if you don't get to your conference championship game, get out. You like that?
Well, then you wouldn't put Michigan in as well if they lose to Ohio State, even in a close game.
You're
taking every side of this. Stop. Can't do it.
Phil Jackson is not happy with your 2-4 Knickerbockers. Specifically, the Zen Masters upset at the lack of times the team has run the triangle. The Knicks ranked 13th in offensive efficiency through 6 games. That's not bad. Scoring 102 a game, but they've been running the triangle primarily out of dead ball situations and only a handful of times per game at that. Tone, is this on the coach, the players, or feel?
Am I on the moon here? You asked me these questions. The triangle, I know, it's the most revolutionary thing in the world since E equals MC squared.
Won like 9 championships.
Yeah, great. With different players.
They won 11.
With different players and with Phil on the bench. He's not on the bench now. He's in the throne seat. The first coach he hired, Derek Fisher. Where's he now?
I don't know.
The second coach he hired, Kurt Ram, is sitting on the bench as an assistant.
I just saw Kurt the other night.
Not a head coach. Because what have the Knicks done since Phil has come to the Knicks? What have they done in one word?
Not much.
Begins with an L, it ends with an E, it's lose. That's what they've done.
Look,
so deliver me from this.
I'm a Phil guy. I believe
I'm a
whatever
Phil
Phil
guy.
does and says.
I covered Phil before you were born.
I know you. Well, not that much longer. That'll make you really old. But
I
Tony,
am.
if Phil's not on the bench, Phil, either coach the triangle yourself or shut up.
Yes. Yes.
Coach it.
Yes.
Coach the hell out of it.
Who did he hire?
Make the unicorn and D Rose and Carmelo.
Retreads.
That's okay. You
Noah,
can be retreads.
retreads.
You can be retreads. Coach it.
Who's the coach right now? What's his name?
Jeff Hornacek.
Has he ever run the triangle in his life?
No.
So if you're going to hire that guy.
But there's no more guys. There's no more guys running the triangle. Who's running the triangle? Steve Kerr's got a job.
Ding, ding, ding.
You
Stop running the triangle.
You don't have to stop running it. But if you don't want to come back and coach it,
the only
be
people
quiet.
that understand the triangle right now are Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen. Are they walking through this door?
Kobe, Shaq.
Are they walking through the door, any of them?
I don't think so.
No, so we're holding the triangle up as some sort of holy grail that is only decipherable by 6 people in the world.
It worked. When Phil coached it.
When? How long ago?
It doesn't matter. If Phil wants to coach it now, I'm all for it.
Players don't
But
want
Jeff is there now.
We're done with this. Lost another election news last night.
Losing like this,
was the small story that San Diegans had rejected a bill that would have raised taxes to finance a new stadium for their Chargers. Only 43% of the residents voted for it. The Chargers have until January 15th to exercise their option to move to Los Angeles. Wilbon, did San Diego residents do the right thing?
Tony, I don't know the concerns and challenges that confront and preoccupy folks in San Diego. Certainly not the weather. But you needed 2/3 approval to get this. Now, This is not a 50% majority. Right. So they're almost 25 percentage points away from having enough residents say, we want to pay for this in part with our tax money, wherever that tax money comes from. And so it's their money. And if they want to say, no, we don't want this, the Chargers should just say, hello, Los Angeles.
I feel very bad for San Diego Charger fans. They've been a very good franchise for a long time. They've packed their stadium for a long time. They've had quality teams for a long time. Okay? They got the best uniforms in the game.
When they wear the baby blues, not those other ones.
Yeah, they're the best in the game.
But they said no. The fans of San Diego said the voters too.
That's right. So go to Los Angeles, and you're the second team in the stadium.
That's where they started.
With the Rams.
Los
so
Angeles.
make one phone call the Jets, find out if that's okay to be the second team in the stadium, because the Giants are the main tenant in that stadium, wouldn't you say? Find out how that works.
Right.
Because the Raiders aren't going. The Raiders are going to Las Vegas.
Sure.
So can I say that I don't even understand the story anymore? It seems so small. If they don't want it. If they don't want it.
If the people of San Diego say we're not going to pay for this.
The only other thing I would say is this. The NFL has a lot of money. If the NFL wants a team in San Diego, take the money out, build it,
the NFL has a stadium
and to make up
fund.
for what you've given away, every other year hold the Super Bowl in San Diego. Who would object to that? Let's take a break. Coming up, Thursday Night Football produces some funky results. Will it increase the Browns' chances, your Browns, of getting their first win?
And is Lions coach Jim Caldwell right to question Golden Tate's touchdowns?
Only 100%. Wait, 1,000% if you can go that high.
Oh, wait, today's not Thursday Night Football. That stinker comes tomorrow.
Yeah, but we're going to talk about it today.
Okay. 2 days of stink.
Join me, Linda Cohn, on the SportsCenter podcast with Jeff Saturday and Dan Graziano. Find out who deserves more credit for the Cowboys' success. Is it Dak or is it Zeke? And which team has most to lose in the second half of the season? Click the Listen tab on ESPN.com.
It's time to fill in some blanks. Let's get the first one from the producer over the loudspeaker.
Playing on Thursday night is blank for the Browns' chances of getting their first win.
It's inconsequential. I don't think it helps them. I don't think it hurts them. I think the Browns are an awful team. They have to play in Baltimore. That's a division game. It looks like a trap game. But because Baltimore barely won, they beat Pittsburgh on Sunday.
Yeah,
so they climb back into the division race. They're 4-4. So if they lose to the Browns, that's a terrible, terrible step backwards. I believe Baltimore is totally ready for the Browns, and they beat the Browns because they're better.
First of all, you're presuming that the Ravens are any good, and I don't think the Ravens are any good this year. I just don't.
Okay.
I know they beat Pittsburgh, but Roethlisberger was just coming back. Tony, playing on Thursday night is well-timed for the Browns' chances of getting their first win, and here's why. One simple thing. We've seen from these games, they're so wretchedly awful because the older players are just not ready to play again. The Ravens are the 5th oldest team in the league. The Browns are the 2nd youngest. It's the only time of the season I'm going to say this makes a difference. Thursday night.
This smells like my population theory. This smells like that.
That means it just smells in that case.
Jim Caldwell is blank to have a problem with Golden Tate's touchdown leap.
He's perceptive. What Golden Tate did was insane.
Yeah.
He held the ball out without any protection whatsoever as he leaped into the end zone. If that ball comes loose upon impact
puts it in play,
and it leaves the field of play, that's a touchback. Then you're still in overtime. Then there's no score. What you say to Mr. Tate is very simple. Enter the end zone properly and then behave like a cat if you want.
Yeah.
But wait.
Jim Caldwell's admonition is forward thinking, because a coach has to take the teaching moments as they present themselves and then say to the rest of the team in the film room, don't be an idiot.
Don't do that.
Don't be an idiot. Now, he can take him aside himself and say, look, I know that was a great play. You scored. If I see that again, and football coaches can punish you. They can.
We can't.
They can get rid of you. And I know Golden Tate's an important person on that team. Tony,
Matthew Stafford
did you
is
see
not
the
gonna let him get rid
ball
of him.
when he brings it back into play right at the goal line?
Did you pay attention to the show, what I just said?
No.
Next!
The Blue Jays would be blank to let Joey Bats go to the Red Sox.
Insane.
Why?
Because if Batista goes to the Red Sox in the same division as Toronto,
old man.
he immediately makes up for all the home runs that Boston loses through David Ortiz.
He's not Poppy.
He makes them whole as a DH, and you have to play him 19 times. The guy's a free agent. This comes about because he's apparently playing footsie to some degree with Boston. If I'm Toronto, I let him go almost anywhere else. But if I find out he's going to Boston, I up the ante and I try and keep him.
I would try to influence him to go to Boston. He's not Poppy. He had 230. He had 22 home runs. He's not Poppy. He's as old as Poppy, but he's not Poppy.
4 years
if
younger
you're
than Poppy,
Toronto,
right?
You're going to worry about Encarnacion, who is like a miniature, Willie Mays with the home run production he's had over the last 6 or 7 years in Toronto.
Willie Mays?
I know,
What's your word?
I went there.
Willie Mays?
Fiscally responsible. Let him walk. Let him go to Boston or anywhere else he wants to go. I'm not paying.
Did you just compare Encarnacion with Willie Mays?
Make sure you were paying attention to the show.
Really? Next.
Miniature.
It's blank that Anthony Davis cannot get the Pelicans a win.
It's absurd. If you ask me what are the two biggest growth stocks among young centers, I give you Anthony Davis and Karl Anthony Towns.
Right.
At the moment, one team is 0-8 and one team is 1-5, which means between them, they are 1-13.
Mike, small.
Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and Will Chamberlain, Bill Russell, this did not happen. That's why I think this is absurd. Is there nobody else on these teams? They're too good for their teams to be so bad.
Tony, I agree with that. Of course, there's no position to take other than that, but it's instructive. It's instructive of a lot of things. This is the way the league has gone now, away not just from Wilt and Russell and Kareem and Moses and Shaq and all the people, Big Bob and all those people that were great players for such a long time. Willis Reed. It's gone small. And there's so many good players.
Is Anthony Davis not somebody you want?
You want him. But, Tony, he's got to be surrounded by more players. Who's the second best player on New Orleans?
I cannot name anybody else on New Orleans.
That's my point.
Right.
They don't have a roster yet that will support Anthony Davis as well. And he can't do it by himself.
1-13 among the two young centers that you would want right now. That's it. Enough of this blank. Let's take one last break, but still to come. Bill Belichick says his letter to Donald Trump was not political.
And is it a big deal that Dwayne Wade hasn't spoken to Pat Riley since the end of last season?
No. That's Riley's move. This is not Durant and Westbrook.
It's not?
This is to be expected. No. Wade expects it. Riley.
Hey, college football fans. I'm Ivan Maisel. On the latest Championship Drive podcast, we break down the Florida Gators, a visit from Mississippi State head coach Dan Mullen, and of course, it's Thursday. It's Phil Steele.
Happy time, people. Happy 81st birthday, Bob Gibson, the most feared right-handed pitcher of his day. Gibson's earned run average in 1968 was 1.12. Let me repeat that, kids. 1.12.
Lights out, baby.
For a starter who went 7, 8, and 9 innings per game. Gibson on the right side, Koufax on the left side. Nobody's getting any runs.
I went to a lot of games as a kid where Gibson and Ferguson Jenkins were the starters, and I loved going to those. Loved it.
Not so happy anniversary, Jimmy Graham. On this day 2 years ago, while you were with the Saints, you hauled down an apparent Hail Mary touchdown pass against the 49ers, only to have it called back for an offensive pass interference penalty on you. Graham reminded us on Monday night what a great tight end he is. He made 2 one-handed touchdown catches. There's Gronk and there's Graham, and that is worth watching this coming Sunday night.
It took them a while to figure out how to use him, though. They just wasted him for a while. By the way, don't forget about Martellus Bennett playing with Gronk in New England. That's a great tight end in the line.
Former Bear.
For a minute.
Happy trails to the Cleveland Indians World Series championship gear being donated to foreign countries. Every year, both World Series teams have championship gear prepared should they win. In recent past years, the losers' championship apparel has been given away in foreign markets. MLB stopped that practice this year, and they are destroying the clothing. Wilbon, wouldn't you want a world champion Indians jacket?
No.
I would. I know Jeff Leonardo would.
I'm sure he would. You don't have to destroy any clothing ever. How wasteful is that? Come on. Major League Baseball ought to know better than that. That's ridiculous.
I think you could sell that here for a lot of money.
Don't sell it. Just give it away.
I'm just saying.
It's
if you want to
MLB.
make
They got
money.
enough money.
No errors, 1 omission. The NBA fined John Wall $25,000 for inappropriate interaction with a game official, with your boy.
I know. This
the
is
St.
excessive.
Ignatius boy.
Seems excessive.
Let's go to the big finish.
Let's do
Dwayne
it.
Wade hasn't talked to Pat Riley since last season ended. Is that a big deal?
Riles, really? You didn't want him anymore. So, get over it. Just did the text. Bill Belichick says his letter to Donald Trump was not political. Your thoughts?
I'm going to take him at his word. We don't often have coaches getting involved in politics. That's why we talked about Stan Van Gundy, because it's unusual.
It is.
Jason Hayward became the first position player to get 3 straight gold gloves with 3 different teams. Is he deserving?
Yes, and that's how he stays in the lineup, hitting about 220 in Joe Madden's lineup. He's a great defensive player. James Harden has had 30 and 15 4 times in the Rockets' first 7 games. What about tonight against the Spurs?
No, I don't like him to do it against the Spurs, but I watched him against the Wizards, and he and Mike D'Antoni have something good going on. You know, if he's just 15 assists all the time, that's good. Last one, Mavs Warriors tonight. Steph Curry had 13 threes in his last start. How many tonight?
Mavs are off to a bad start, too, Tony. A more reasonable number of threes for Steph Curry tonight. I'm going to go with 7. That's my number.
We're out of time. We'll try and do better the next time, and I'm Tony Kornheiser.
You wouldn't like to have 7 threes in the game. I'm Mike Wilbon. Same time tomorrow, Knuckleheads. Check out the PTI podcast on iTunes.
It's a pretty good show today. Went from here to there and around and all that. My podcast is good. Good night, Canada.
PTI. Ole Miss heads to College Station Saturday night to face Texas A&M.
Stiff arm, down he goes. Down he goes.
Coverage begins Saturday at 7 Eastern on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app.